Hello, my friends. How are you today? I hope you are fine and you are enjoying this online class. Let me introduce myself. My name is Primita Arif Karabella. My student number is 50. In this time, I will explain about the definition of deductive approach. So, do you know deductive approach? Deductive approach is a traditional approach in which information about target language and rules are driven at the beginning of the class and continued with examples. A deductive approach is more teacher-centered learning. The principles of this approach are generally used in the classes where the main target is to teach grammar structure. There are three basic principles a deductive lesson. Start with presentation of the rules by the teacher. Secondly, teacher give examples by highlighting the grammar structures, and then students make the practice with the rules and produce their own examples at the end of the lesson. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
I'm Elvana. Okay, as we know from the previous group, inductive approach and deductive approach basically differentiate in lesson procedures, teacher roles, student roles, and the usage of meta language in teaching process. Our deductive approach is based on the top-down theory, which explanations and presentations of grammar rules take the precedence over teaching. In the top-down theory, there are three parts. The first one is general rule, the second one is specific example, and the last one is practice. General rule, it means that the language is taught from the whole to parts. So the student understand the grammar rules and the structure firstly. The second one is a specific example. It means that the student see the example provided by the teacher. And the last one is practice. It means that the student begin to produce their own example after understanding and seeing the example from the teacher. To sum up, the deductive approach commences with the presentations of a role taught and then is followed by the example in which the rule is applied. In this regard, students are expected to engage with it through the study and manipulations of the example. In the case of the applications of the deductive approach, Michael Swans outlines some guidelines for when the rule is presented. Among them are: first, truth. It means that the rule should be true. While truthfulness might need to be compromised in the interest clarity and simplicity, the rule must bear some resemblance to the reality it is describing. The second one is limitations. It means that the rule should show clearly what the limits are on the use of a given form. And the third, clarity. It means that the rule should be clear. Sometimes when the rule lack of clarity, maybe it is often caused by ambiguity or obscure terminology. For simplicity, it means that the rule should be simple. Maybe when the rule lack of simplicity, it is caused by overburdening the rule with subcategories and sub-subcategories in order to cover all possible instances and account for possible exceptions. There is a limit to the account of exceptions a learner can remember. 5. Familiarity. It means an explanation should try to make use of concepts already familiar to the learners. Few learners have specialized knowledge of grammar, although they may well be familiar with some basic terminology. used to describe the grammar of their own language. And the last one is relevance. It means that the rule should answer only these questions that the student need answer. These questions may vary according to the mother tongue of the learner.
Okay, right now I want to present about the advantage of the deductive approach. Number one, it can be more effective method for the high level students because the high level student is more experienced. And number two is it can be a time saving method because the student is only give their attention to the teachers, or also known as one-way interaction. And number three is many of direct practice or exam or application of examples are immediately given. For example, is there are some English teachers want to give their example of the grammar material is directly. I mean at that time, not in all the time, but there is give it directly. And number four is many of rule aspects can be more simply and clearly explained. That is true because the interaction is only one way from the students to the teachers, and the materials also straight to the point. Alright, that is the advantage of the deductive approach, and then the disadvantage of deductive approach. Number one is the student's act is very seldom because the student is only focused to the materials, not to the practice. And number two, the student is too focused on the theory and less on practice because is the student's obligation is to study and experience and get the experience, also train or measure it by do some exercise, but the practice is the practical side is very seldom. Okay, number three is the young learner may not able to understand the concept because the young learner maybe not understand what is the meaning of certain word, certain phrase, certain clause, but the high level student is more more experienced, and of course their knowledge is higher than the young learner. And the last is sometimes the explanation is difficult or seldom to be memorable materials because the explanation often be short-term memory, not for the long-term memory.
I want to explain about relating deductive and inductive approach in SLA theory. Deductive approach and inductive approach is related to learning and acquisition in SLA theory. Why? Firstly, deductive approach is related to the conscious learning process in which this approach tries to place a great emphasis on our correction and presentation the explicit rules. The reason why this approach, deductive approach applied, it is uh, deductive approach effective and the elegant way to organize and present the rule already to understood by student. Deductive approach started by teacher explanation or presentation the explicit tool, the rules of grammar for student, and then student copy it, and then doing exercise uh, who the teacher given. This why make student more confident to doing the exercise, because the student know the rules before he or she doing this exercise. This approach, deductive approach, are often used for adult students because the approach using explicit rules and it make student easily to understand it. To be successful to apply this approach, the teacher needs more various exercise or numerous exercise. The second, it is inductive approach relates to the subconscious learning process, and it is similar to the concept of language acquisition. According this approach, students learn the system of language. For example, the rules of grammar. In the same way as students acquire the first or second their language. In this approach, meaningful interaction in the target of language, or natural communication is more important than the rules of this language itself. For this reason, the error correction and the rule of grammar are the emphasis, and most importantly are the utterance easily understood. And then the student learning the rules unconsciously. Okay, this is the differences about deductive approach and inductive approach. For the first deductive approach, learn the rule in context of formal instruction, and then inductive approach, learn the rule as a child acquire their first or second language, and then after that in the deductive approach students know the rules, and then in inductive approach the student pick up the rules. Here it's because in deductive approach the student learn the rule consciously, and then in the inductive approach the student learn the rule unconsciously. It means the student get the rules explicitly in the deductive approach, and in the inductive approach the student get the rules implicitly.
Okay, I think that's all. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Goodbye.